Child neurology is sort of the last frontier of medicine.
It's one of the fields in medicine or pediatrics which hasn't been explored previously. So things are basically just exploding.
Ultimately, the nervous system is what controls all of us. It's the great unknown.
Neuroscience, providing answers to serious questions as never before. Offering hope and understanding to the parents of children who suffer from life-altering disorders of the brain and central nervous system. And leading the way are child neurologists, special pediatricians who are compassionate, cautious caregivers exploring new medical frontiers.
The breadth of conditions that we see is really immense.
Pediatric headache, pediatric epilepsy, pediatric neuromuscular disease.
Children who have had strokes, children who have birth defects that affect the brain or the muscles or the nerves.
Disorders that involve thinking, cognitive functions, that involve motor function, that involve sensation.
We're probably talking about 10% of a pediatric population.
And the problems that are referred to us, usually the pediatricians are not, they may not be trained to handle, or they may not be able to handle.
Extensive education and training in both pediatrics and neurology are hallmarks of the discipline.
I think other physicians often categorize as not treatable or not diagnosable. And those are the patients I think who need us most.
These are the challenges that drive child neurologists in academic and private practice settings globally. Men and women whose spirit and optimism propel clinical and research advancements and bring hope to parents and patients alike.
The effect that you can have on their quality of life is enormous. And this goes for children who are otherwise normal developmentally and physically, as well as the children who are neurologically impaired.
In the last about 7 months, he went from hardly being able to turn over to being able to walk, which is obviously very incredible.
In many disease processes, we can intervene, and we can intervene dramatically.
For patients and their families, the impact of a child neurologist's care is infinite.
Our story is a happy story. I mean, looking at her now, she has a future and she has college ahead of her. And 3 years ago, we didn't even think that was possible.
Positive outcomes, the end product of accurate diagnoses, together with recent advances in the fields of neuroscience, molecular biology, and genetics, are revolutionizing patient care.
The cornerstone to proper treatment is proper diagnosis. And in many ways, the advances in technology has resulted in better diagnosis.
First of all, getting the diagnosis was crucial because then we could move forward with our lives.
Our ability to look at the brain, understanding the structures and the developmental aspects of the brain have improved tremendously.
Now we're able to identify certain neurotransmitter markers by MRI, functional MRI, PET scanning, so that we can really get a better idea of what's happening in the brain on a chemical level as well as a structural level.
Bench-to-bedside medicine has led to greater clinical successes while generating new excitement.
The interface between research and the clinic, for me, is almost seamless. The problems that I work on in the lab are driven by the questions that I cannot answer in the clinic.
Once you gain information in the research arena, the opportunity of taking that to the bedside, taking that to the clinical evaluation and care for children, and assessing the impact of that intervention is very exciting.
Like explorers or pioneers of the past, child neurologists persist in their efforts to map their course, assess their progress, and focus their efforts on end results.
Our understanding of very basic mechanisms in the brain has really helped us in terms of developing new drugs, new treatments.
The majority of children that we see, what we do is either curatively or symptomatically treat their disorder so that they function ostensibly as a normal person would.
He was instrumental in helping us decide what therapies Jeremy needed.
Through the persistence of our neurologist and his dedication and expertise, we were able to find the right drug and she had a much better quality of life.
As our understanding of the molecular basis of these conditions improves, we'll start to understand how its application can be used in better treating and developing new ways of approaching problems.
By focusing not only on the child, but the entire family, child neurologists educate and inform while helping parents cope with their child's condition, often counseling on what may be in store for the future.
The most important thing that we do is probably guidance for our families.
Our neurologists have been wonderful answering the questions, and then also respecting the knowledge that we have.
Working with the family, helping them understand the disease, and working with them on the treatment plan can improve the quality of life of that patient and their family life.
Our child neurologists were really great at helping us work through the initial shock of what we were facing. From the very beginning, they've always tried to rein us in and say one day at a time, one day at a time, and we've been grateful for that.
And that relationship can often last a lifetime.
Whether it was in the early stages of his diagnosis or 2 years later when he had system failure, we ended up in the hospital for a big chunk of time, the neurologist was the constant.
Often you'll be in touch with families for years, sometimes taking care of their siblings, and it's this longitudinal relationship that I think is very rewarding.
Coming to know a patient as a whole child, engaging their ability to function and integrate within the community, has made child neurologists effective advocates for children with neurological disorders.
Child neurology is an area in which advocacy is inseparable from the medicine.
Anyone who's in the field of pediatrics is not only a doctor to that child, but an advocate for children. And in the field of child neurology, that's even more important because you're dealing with a lot of children who have neurologic impairments, and we need to be advocates for those children.
As the demand for child neurologists continues to grow, the field stands on the cutting edge of significant medical breakthroughs, expanding the boundaries of knowledge and care, fulfilling the promise to children and families. You can become part of the next generation of child neurologists.
I think it looks incredibly great for the future, mainly because of the pace at which we are learning.
From the research standpoint, I think we are going to really hone in on the technologies that are necessary to understand the basic science behind not only neurologic disease, but the treatments that might be available to deal with them.
These are wonderful doctors that still have a chance to explore something that we still don't understand.
I think it's one of the last frontiers of medicine still left because there's a lot of new knowledge that's just about to be found.
Children that we may not be able to establish a diagnosis for today, I think within the next 5 years or so, there will be increasing ability to do so.
And the next step, I think, is to be able to apply that knowledge to developing new treatments for neurological disease.
Oh, I think there's little doubt that the future of children with neurologic abnormalities is much brighter for the presence of child neurologists.
You can't hope for anything more than that, a future for your child.